The email arrived on December 20th at 0400 hours. I was sitting in my barracks room at Fort Carson, Colorado, finishing the last of my deployment paperwork. The room smelled like instant coffee and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from 16 months overseas. My duffel bag sat packed by the door. My flight home was scheduled for December 23rd, 3 days. I had not been home for Christmas in 4 years. 4 rotations, Iraq twice, Afghanistan once, and a training deployment to Poland that had stretched longer than planned. 4 years of video calls and care packages and promises that next year would be different. This year was supposed to be different. I opened the email. The sender was my father, Richard Brennan. The subject line was blank. The message was 3 sentences long. Natalie, your stepmother and I have made other plans for Christmas this year. The house will not be available. I hope you understand. I read it twice, then a third time. The house will not be available, as if I were asking to rent a vacation property, as if I were a stranger requesting accommodations. I closed my laptop, sat in the dark for a long time. Outside, the Colorado night was cold and clear, the kind of cold that makes the stars look sharp enough to cut. I had been in the Army for 6 years, enlisted straight out of high school at 18 because college was not an option and staying in my small Pennsylvania town felt like suffocating. The recruiter had promised structure, purpose, a way forward. He had been right about all of it. The Army gave me everything my father never had. Clear expectations, defined roles, a place where competence mattered more than blood relation. I was good at it, disciplined, reliable, the kind of soldier officers wanted on their teams. I made sergeant at 22, got my ranger tab at 23, deployed 3 times before I turned 24. I had learned to navigate complex terrain in hostile territory, to make decisions under fire, to lead soldiers who trusted me with their lives. But I had never learned how to navigate my father. Richard Brennan was not a bad man. He was simply an absent one, present physically but not emotionally. A man who went to work and came home and sat in front of the television and never asked questions about anything that required him to actually see the people around him. My mother had died when I was 12. Cancer, the kind that starts quietly and spreads quickly and takes everything with it when it goes. She had been the center of our small family, the person who asked about my day and helped with homework and made sure there was dinner on the table and love in the house. When she died, the house became a place where people existed in separate rooms. Richard worked at the hardware store, came home at 6, ate whatever I learned to cook in those first desperate months after the funeral, watched television until 10, went to bed. On weekends, he mowed the lawn and fixed things that broke and never once asked if I was okay. I learned to be okay without him asking. I learned to do my own laundry and pack my own lunches and sign my own permission slips with his signature that I had practiced until it was perfect. I learned to handle parent-teacher conferences by myself and apply to jobs by myself and figure out how to be a functional human being without any guidance from the one parent I had left. By the time I was 16, Richard and I were roommates, polite, distant, sharing a house the way strangers share an elevator. When I enlisted at 18, he signed the papers without comment. When I left for basic training, he drove me to the airport and shook my hand at the security checkpoint. When I called from Fort Benning to tell him I had graduated, he said congratulations and asked if I needed anything. I said no, I never needed anything. That was the role I had learned to play. Richard married Jennifer 2 years after I enlisted. I learned about it in a phone call that lasted for minutes. I am getting married, he said. Her name is Jennifer. She has a son. I thought you should know. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in October. I was in the middle of a training cycle, could not get leave. Richard said he understood. I sent a card. Jennifer had a son named Ethan, 14, from a previous marriage that had ended badly, according to the brief details Richard provided in one of our infrequent phone calls. She moved into the house with Ethan 3 months after the wedding. The house I had grown up in. The house where my mother's pictures still sat on the mantle. The house that had been mine and Richard's for 6 years of quiet, careful distance. I did not meet Jennifer or Ethan for another year. I was deployed. By the time I came home on leave, they had been living there for 14 months, long enough to make it theirs. The house looked different, new furniture, new paint colors. The pictures of my mother were gone from the mantle, replaced with photos of Jennifer and Ethan and Richard at places I had never been. Jennifer was polite, friendly in the way that people are friendly when they are trying but do not quite know what to try for. She asked about the Army, about deployment, about whether I liked what I was doing. I gave her answers that were true but not complete. Yes, it is challenging. Yes, I like it. Ethan barely looked at me. He was 15 by then. Angry in the way that teenage boys are angry when their lives have been disrupted too many times. He stayed in his room most of the visit, came out for meals, and then disappeared again. Richard sat in his recliner and watched television and said very little. I stayed for 5 days, slept in what used to be my bedroom but now had Jennifer's decorating touches. Cream-colored walls instead of the blue I had chosen at 13. New curtains, a different bedspread, everything polite and neutral and not mine. On the last day, Jennifer made a breakfast that was too large. Eggs and bacon and toast and fruit. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and smiled. "You are welcome here anytime," she said. "I want you to know that. This is your home." It was not my home. It was Jennifer's home. But I smiled and thanked her and left the next morning. I had been deployed for the last 3 Christmases. Iraq in 2021, Afghanistan in 2022, Poland in 2023. Each year I had called on Christmas Day, spoken to Richard for 10 or 15 minutes, asked how everyone was doing, told him I was fine. Each year he said we would make up for it next year. Next year would be different. This year I had put in my leave request in September. 3 weeks, December 15th through January 5th. Long enough to actually be home. Long enough to feel like I was part of something instead of a voice on a phone call. Richard had said it sounded good. Said they would be happy to have me. Said Jennifer was already planning Christmas dinner. I had believed him. I had been stupid to believe him. I sat in my barracks room and read the email again. The house will not be available. Not I am sorry. Not this is difficult. Not we need to talk about this. Just a statement. Clinical. Final. The way you tell someone their reservation has been canceled. I opened a new email. Stared at the blank screen. I could have written back asking why. Asking what had changed. Asking if this was really how he wanted to handle this. But I already knew the answers. Jennifer wanted Christmas with her family. Richard and Ethan. The 3 of them. The unit they had built in the for years since I had been gone. I was not part of that unit. I was the soldier who called every few months and sent cards from overseas and existed somewhere in the background of Richard's life, but not in the center of it. Never in the center of it. I closed the laptop without writing anything. The next morning I called my platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Maria Chen. She picked up on the second ring. "Brennan, you are supposed to be on leave by now." "Change of plans," I said. "Family thing fell through. I need to stay on post for Christmas." There was a pause. Chen was good at reading silences. "You sure?" "Yes." "All right. I will let the co know you are available if anything comes up." "And Brennan?" "Yes, Sergeant. My family does Christmas on the 24th. You are invited if you want it. No questions asked." I felt something catch in my throat, swallowed it down. "Thank you, Sergeant. I will let you know." I did not go to Chen's family Christmas. I stayed on post, volunteered for duty on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, spent the holiday making sure soldiers who were stuck on base had a decent meal and somewhere to be. It was easier than thinking about the house in Pennsylvania that was not available. I did not call Richard on Christmas, did not send a message, did not acknowledge the day at all. He did not call me either. 3 days after Christmas, I received a text from a number I did not recognize. "Hi Natalie, this is Jennifer. I wanted to reach out because I think there has been a misunderstanding about Christmas. Your dad did not mean to hurt your feelings. He was just trying to make things easier for everyone. I hope you can understand. We would love to see you next time you are in the area." I stared at the text for a long time. A misunderstanding. As if I had misread the clear, simple sentence that said I was not welcome in the house I had grown up in. As if being told not to come home after 4 years overseas was something I should understand and accept and be grateful for because it made things easier for everyone. I deleted the text without responding. January came. My leave ended. I reported back to duty and threw myself into training and planning and the 100 small tasks that fill a soldier's day. In February, I got orders for another deployment. 8 months. Iraq again. Departure date June 1st. I called Richard to tell him. It was a Wednesday evening. He answered on the 4th ring. "Natalie, how are you?" "I am fine. I wanted to let you know I am deploying again in June." "Iraq?" "Yes." "How long?" 8 months. There was a pause. I could hear the television in the background. A sports game. Announcers talking over crowd noise. "Well," Richard said, "stay safe. I will. Another pause. Longer this time. I am sorry about Christmas, he said. The words came out stiff, uncomfortable. Jennifer thought it would be better to keep it small this year. Ethan has been having a hard time. We did not want to make things more complicated. I understand, I said. I did not understand, but there was no point in saying so. Maybe next year, Richard said. Maybe. We talked for another 5 minutes. Surface topics, weather, work, nothing that required either of us to actually say what we were thinking. When I hung up, I sat in my room and felt the particular kind of loneliness that comes from talking to someone who is supposed to know you but does not. I deployed in June. Mosul, 8 months of heat and dust and the kind of work that requires absolute focus and leaves no room for thinking about anything else. I was good at the work, good at the focus, good at being a soldier. It was the only thing I had ever been good at. I came home in February, landed at Fort Carson on a Tuesday afternoon, processed through debriefing and medical checks and all the administrative tasks that mark the end of a deployment. I had 2 weeks of post-deployment leave, required. The Army's way of making sure soldiers decompress before jumping back into regular duty. Most soldiers went home, back to families and houses and people who had been waiting for them. I rented a cabin in the mountains outside Colorado Springs. 1 room, a kitchenette, a wood-burning stove, no cell service, no internet, just silence and snow and the space to exist without anyone expecting anything from me. I stayed there for 12 days. On the 13th day, I drove back to post and checked my email. There was a message from Richard, sent 3 days earlier. Natalie, Jennifer and I are separating. She moved out last week. I wanted you to know. I hope you are doing well. I read it twice, felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, no sense that some cosmic justice had been served. Just the flat, empty feeling of receiving information about people whose lives had continued without me. I did not respond. Spring turned to summer. Summer turned to fall. I made staff sergeant, got assigned to a new unit, trained, deployed again, came back, deployed again. The years passed in the rhythm of military life, structured, purposeful, predictable. Richard called occasionally, left voicemails, short messages that said he was checking in, that he hoped I was doing okay, that he would like to talk sometime. I called back when enough time had passed that I could justify it. We talked about nothing. Weather, his job, whether I was staying in the Army. Surface conversations that never went deeper than the first layer. It was easier that way. In November, 4 years after the email that said the house would not be available, I got orders to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 4 hours from Pennsylvania, close enough that going home was no longer a complicated logistics problem. Close enough that I could drive there on a weekend if I wanted to. I did not want to. But something in me, some stubborn piece that had survived 12 years of distance and disappointment, decided that I needed to see it one more time. The house, Richard, the life that had continued without me. I drove up on a Saturday in early December. Did not tell Richard I was coming. Just got in my car and followed the highway north through Virginia and into Pennsylvania. The town looked the same, small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and nothing ever really changes. The hardware store where Richard worked was still on Main Street. The high school I had graduated from still sat on the hill overlooking the valley. I drove to the house, parked across the street, sat in my car and looked at it. It was smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling on the shutters. The lawn needed mowing. Richard's truck sat in the driveway, the same truck he had been driving when I left for basic training 12 years ago. I sat there for 20 minutes, watching, waiting for something. Some feeling of recognition or belonging or anger. Nothing came. The house was just a house. The place where I had grown up was just a place. The man inside was just a man who had never learned how to be a father to a daughter who had never learned how to ask for one. I started the car, drove away, did not look back. I stopped at a diner on the edge of town, ordered coffee and pie, sat in a booth by the window and watched the traffic pass. My phone buzzed. A text from Staff Sergeant Chen, who had been promoted to Sergeant First Class and was now stationed at Fort Benning. How is leave? You staying out of trouble? I smiled, typed back. Staying out of trouble, eating pie, living the dream. Good. Let me know if you need anything. You know where to find me. I did know. Chen had been there for 3 Christmases, had invited me to family dinners and asked how I was doing and noticed when I was not okay even when I said I was fine. She had done what Richard had never done, seen me, valued me, made space for me in her life. That was what family was supposed to do. I finished my pie, paid the check, got back in my car and drove south, away from the town I had grown up in, away from the house that was not available, away from the man who had chosen distance over difficulty every single time. I drove back to Fort Bragg, back to base, back to the barracks room that was mine, back to the life I had built that did not require anyone's permission or approval or availability. I did not call Richard to tell him I had been there, did not send a message explaining why I had driven 4 hours to sit in a car across from his house and then leave without knocking. I simply moved forward. The army reassigned me 6 months later. Germany, 3 years, long enough that going home would require international flights and complicated logistics and enough advanced planning that I could always find a reason not to do it. I took the assignment, spent 3 years in Stuttgart, deployed twice more, made sergeant first class, became the kind of soldier who trained younger soldiers and led teams and earned respect through competence and consistency. I built a life that was mine, friends who were more like family than family had ever been, colleagues who trusted me, a career that gave me purpose and structure and a place to belong. I did not need the house in Pennsylvania. I did not need Richard's approval or Jennifer's polite invitations or Ethan's indifference. I needed exactly what I had built, a life where I was seen and valued and never told I was not available. Richard called on my 32nd birthday, left a voicemail. "Natalie, it is your dad. Happy birthday. I know we have not talked in a while. I have been thinking about you. About things I should have said a long time ago. I would like to talk if you have time. Call me back when you can." I listened to the voicemail 3 times, heard the regret in his voice, the awkwardness, the attempt at reaching across 12 years of silence and distance and missed opportunities. I did not call him back, not because I was angry, not because I wanted to punish him, but because some conversations come too late. Some apologies arrive after the wound has already scarred over and the person has already learned to live without what they once needed. I did not need Richard to tell me he should have done better. I already knew that, had known it since I was 12 years old and learned to sign his name on permission slips because he could not be bothered to ask about my life. I did not need his regret or his awkward attempts at connection. I had built a life without them, a good life, a life I was proud of. That was enough. I am 34 now, still in the Army, stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I have 15 years of service, 5 more until I can retire with full benefits. I do not know what I will do after that. Maybe stay in, maybe get out and start something new. Maybe buy a small house somewhere and finally have a place that is mine without deployment orders hanging over it. I do not know, but I know it will be my choice, my life, my future built on my terms. I have not spoken to Richard in 3 years. He stopped calling after the birthday voicemail, stopped sending emails, stopped trying to bridge a gap that had become too wide to cross. I do not wonder about him. Do not check social media or ask mutual acquaintances how he is doing. Do not drive through Pennsylvania when my assignments take me to the East Coast. I simply exist in the life I have built, the life that does not require his availability or approval. Some people might say I should forgive him, that family is family and you only get one father, and holding grudges hurts me more than it hurts him. Those people have never been told they are not available in their own home, have never spent 12 years trying to earn a place in a life that never had room for them, have never learned that the absence of cruelty is not the same thing as the presence of love. Richard was not cruel. He was simply absent, and absence, over enough years, becomes its own kind of rejection. I do not hate him. I do not wish him harm. I simply do not have space in my life for people who only remember I exist when it is convenient. The email that said the house was not available was the clearest thing Richard ever said to me. It was honest, final, a statement of exactly where I stood in his life. I heard it, understood it, and built a life that did not require his house or his approval or his last-minute attempts at connection. That is the ending, not reconciliation, not forgiveness, not a scene where he finally understands what he did wrong and I finally get the father I needed. Just me, in my life, building something that is mine. The Army gave me what Richard never could: structure, purpose, a place where competence mattered and effort was recognized and showing up was enough. I showed up. every day, for 12 years. And I built a life I am proud of. That is the only ending that matters. Here is what I want to know. If you were coming home after years of military service and your parent told you the house was not available, would you have shown up anyway and demanded answers? Some people say you should fight for family no matter what. Others say that family is supposed to fight for you first. Do you think I should have called Richard back after that birthday voicemail? Or was I right to let it go? And the big question, would you have driven to that house and sat outside? Or would you have moved on without looking back? Tell me your honest answer in the comments. If you believe people should face the consequences of their actions, hit subscribe. I have got more stories of justice that will blow your mind.